so many hours in the day. I'm not young anymore. I'm going to be 54 if the Lord wills. A lot of stuff to relearn, unlearn, learn afresh. And by the time I will learn what the arguments are for and against, and then master the material and make it second nature, is going to take years. You think just because I read a few quotes on the papacy, for it, I'm an expert, or against it, I'm an expert, or a few snippets here and there about the filioque, I'm an expert. No, it takes years of understanding the context of the statements from these writers and the metaphysics. Let me explain to you what I mean by metaphysics, and we're going to get into the topic. The filioque centers on certain key metaphysical concepts, issues, meaning it has to do with the nature of God. When you're dealing with the filioque, you're dealing with the being of God, the nature of God, and how the Father, Son, and Spirit relate to one another in their unity, in their essential unity, how it affects the three being one God. You with me there? Let me explain to you. Can I just give you a taste of what's at stake? The early Christians, do you mind? You want me to speak for just a few minutes? What I mean metaphysics has to do with something that's beyond the physical, natural, materialistic realm. These are concepts that are not something that you can touch tangibly, right? Meta, right? Metaphysics, the physical, the material, right? You're dealing with realities that are based on concepts and ideas in our minds that we cannot touch physically because they're not material, like the laws of logic. The laws of logic are not material. They are concepts in our mind, and we believe these concepts are planted in our mind because the laws of logic originate out of God's mind. You with me? You understand what I'm saying, right? May the Spirit save me from error and articulate these concepts correctly. And bear with me, I'm learning too. All right. So when we're talking about the filioque, we're talking about the nature of God being one. Okay, let me explain to you what the issue is. The nature of God being one. If you read the early Christians, they held to what's called the monarchy or monarchia of the Father. Monos arche. Monos arche. Monos, one. Arche, source, authority. The word arche, how do you guys in Greek say it? Arche means source. It can mean ruler. It can mean authority. It can mean beginning. So the monarchy or monarchia means there's one source of divinity, and that one source is the Father. This is what you're going to find throughout the centuries. This is uncontested. Who is the one source of the divine nature, the divine mode of being, the divine essence? The Father. He's the source. He's the source without source. Arche and archos is the technical term, if I believe. Fact check me. Arche and archos, I believe. And who does a wonderful job articulating this? The Clark Kent of Orthodox philosophy, Dr. Bo Branson. Wonderful job. Source without source. Divine nature originates from him, his hypostasis, meaning one of the definitional characteristics that differentiate the Father from the Son and Spirit, his hypostasis or hypostasis, however you want to pronounce it, is that not only is he the begetter and the spirator, the one who brings out the Spirit begets the Son, but he's the source. That is one of the properties unique to his person. That's why he's the Father, not the Son, not the Spirit. You understand? In Trinitarian understanding, though they have the same nature and every essential attribute of divinity would be theirs, they possess that nature and all the essential attributes of divinity equally. There are certain properties, certain properties which differentiate the persons of the Godhead, meaning the Father has properties by which you know he's not the Son, because these are properties the Son doesn't have, nor does the Spirit. The Son has certain properties by which you know he's not the Father, not the Spirit, because those properties are unique to him as the Son. They're not possessed by the Spirit or the Father. Okay? So one of the unique properties of the Father is not only does he's the begetter, he's the spirator, the one who breathes out the Spirit, but he's also the source of the divine nature. That's why the early Christians would say there's only one God because there's only one Father. You understand the logic here? Now, guys, if you know better than me, correct me. I'm just trying to grasp and learn, and God forgive me if I'm mistaken. You know how we know there's one God? Because there's one Father. What do you mean? Because the Father is one, and he's the source of the divine nature. Since the source of the divine nature is one, there's one God. You guys with me? So how do we know there's one God? Because there's one source. There's one Father. So he's the Father, not simply because he begets the Son. He's the Father because the word Father can mean source, possessor. The divine nature originates from him. Now, the issue with the filioque is this. If there's only one source of the divine nature, then he is the one that communicates the divine nature to the Son and the Spirit. You see? Who communicates the divine nature to the Son? The Father alone. Now, here's the debate. Who communicates the divine nature to the Spirit? Here's the objection. Now, put your thinking caps on. If you say Father and Son, you now introduce two sources. And if you have more than one source, it's no longer one God. Do you see what the debate is now? I see. If I say both Father and Son are the source of the divine nature of the Spirit, Father and Son communicate divine nature to the Spirit, then that means there's not one source. And if there's not one source, there's not one God. That's the debate between Catholics and Orthodox. You see? And you think it's easy. Some young kid who's 19 years old, lives in his mommy's basement. I'm going to now stop Jay Dyer. I'm going to stop. I have to rewatch the debate between David Urhan and Christian Wagner, where I moderated the debate on this very topic and how highly technical, philosophical it was. So I represented correct theory, right? Full armor apologetics. Now, Catholics, do you understand what the debate is? Catholics, do you understand what the debate is? Yes. So the Catholic response is the Father alone is the source of divinity, but that divinity comes from Father through the Son. So it's not that the Son is a second source. The one source, Father, communicates the divine nature to the Spirit through the Son, which is why the Spirit is also the Spirit of the Son. Oh, and you thought it was easy. Jimmy, hold on, it's shock, dude. Shoot. And you thought it was easy. And some 19-year-old kid thinks he's now knowledgeable enough to debate this issue with people who've been studying it for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Now, for those of you who wanted to know what the issue is, did it now help you understand what the issue is? Did it at least bring greater clarity? Why are they dividing over this? Why they're going at it? Why? Right? Why they're going at it? Do we see what the issue is? For God to be one, there has to be one source of divinity. That one source is the Father. And the Father communicates the divine nature to the Son completely timelessly. And the one source, the one Father, communicates divine nature to the Spirit. But the way he does it is different. In some way, beyond our comprehension, the Father communicates his divinity Son by begetting in a manner unlike anything, in a manner that is timeless. But the way he communicates the divinity to the Spirit is not by begetting, but by spirating, breathing. Even that breathing is not physical because God is not a physical being. And where do they get this? Now look at the brilliance of these Christians. Why did they assume the Spirit was not begotten? Because number one, the Bible never says the Spirit is begotten of the Father, that he's the begotten Son. Number two, look at their brilliance. You want me to show you how brilliant these men were and then put us to shame? They picked up on the word Spirit, and they picked up on language in Scripture where it says God breathes out the Spirit. The word Spirit in Hebrew and Greek can mean breath, wind. Watch. Breath, wind. Breath, wind. Pneuma can mean spirit, breath, wind. Ruach means spirit, breath, wind. So then they picked up on it. Oh, wow. So the Spirit isn't God's Son. The Spirit is God's breath. You with me there? So then God communicates his divinity Spirit differently from the way he does the Son, right? He doesn't breathe out the Son, but he breathes out the Spirit, right? So that's why they come up spiration. To spirate is to breathe, but it's not physical breath. Whereas the Son is begotten. That's why he's called the Son. Eternally begotten, eternally spirated, proceeding. Wow. You see their brilliance? That's why the Spirit is not the Son, and the Son is not the Spirit. That's why the Spirit is the breath, and the Son is not the breath. Because the word ruach, pneuma, can mean breath and wind, and God is said to breathe into man's nostrils the breath of life to animate him, and that breath of life is the Spirit who gives life. Oh, that's why we know the Spirit is not another Son of God. You see the brilliance? And you think some kid who's just started ministry is mastered the metaphysics of all this? Really? You do? All right, here. Let me show you what I mean. Really? You see it? Yep, that's what I was going to. K, Theos and Hologos. Right here. It's right here. Job 33:4. The Spirit of God hath made me, the breath of the mighty doth quicken me. Spirit is the breath, God is the mighty. Breath. And here, John 20:21-22. Jesus therefore said to them again, peace to you, according as the Father has sent me, I also send you. And this having said, he breathed on them and said to them, receive the Holy Spirit. You see the genius of the fathers here? You guys see the genius or no? Rumble, do you guys see the genius? Exactly, Joshua. Exactly, my brother Joshua. So you see how brilliant these early Christians were to pick up on these nuances. Spirit is not called the Son of God. Son of God is not called the Spirit of the Father. Son is begun. The Spirit is spirated, breathed. Wow. So what was the issue? Let me just repeat it one final time. What was the issue? If there's one source of divinity, and that's the Father, which is why God is one, the grounding of God's unity. How do we know God is one? Because there's one source. And that one source is that one person, the Father, the hypostasis. So it belongs to the Father. It's the property of the Father that separates and differentiates him as Father from being Son and Spirit. This property belongs to him, that he's the source, the begetter and spirator. So the debate was, if you say the Father has communicated his divine nature to the Son, right? To the Spirit, the Father has communicated his divine nature to the Spirit by the Son. Aren't you making two sources? Now you have two sources for the Spirit's divinity. And if there are two, it's no longer one. If it's no longer one, it's not one God. So what is the response? No, the divine nature originates from the Father. He's the sole source from which the divine nature comes, but it comes through the Son to the Spirit, which is why the Spirit is the Spirit of the Son. But then they come back and say, well, wait, it's asymmetrical. That means the Father and Son share a characteristic that the Spirit doesn't. If the Spirit doesn't beget the Son, the Father alone, but the Father spirates the Spirit through the Son, that means now the Father and Son have a property or a characteristic unique to themselves that the Spirit doesn't. Wouldn't this mean the Spirit is less than them? Do you see the issues? And you thought it was simple. Do you see the issues? I may look dumb, and I'm dumber than I look, but I know what they're talking about. Oh, I see what you mean. Do you understand what the issue is? Catholics and Orthodox, you see what the issue is, right? So you're saying now the Father and Son share a characteristic that the Spirit doesn't. Doesn't that mean now the Spirit is less than them because they have a characteristic he doesn't have? So far, am I articulating the issues correctly for those of you who know? Everyone with me there? Now, good luck settling it, because I ain't going to settle it. I ain't that smart, Holmes. Now we can go into the topic. Now, did I make it clear for those of you like me, a layperson like me, and if you're like me, an idiot like me, did you now understand what the issue is? What the filioque is all about? It's not simply saying whether the Pope has the authority to add to the creed like they did at the Council of Constantinople.